This is long overdue. This is point 7 of the 30-point document series that I started a while back and then abandoned after point 6. And this is a doozy. So I started that document series before the unredacted version of Blake Lively's response to the 56.1 statements. So that's going to add another layer to these videos. And whew, it's so funny because it tells you a lot about what was real time uh, things that Blake Lively was upset about and versus what she added later. One of the biggest things I always tell people is what is missing. And something screams out in this list as missing. Point 7 says no more inquiries by Mr. Baldoni to BL trainer without her knowledge or consent to disclose her weight. This is the only weight related issue that she puts in this 30-point document. And yet, in the lawsuit, she makes a big deal about Jennifer Benson being a weight loss specialist, according to Blake Lively, and how Justin Baldoni wanted to shame her by referring her to Jennifer Benson. And yet, Blake Lively's own evidence shows that she's the one who said that she wanted to lose weight in the intake form. And you could see from Jennifer Benson's email back to her that the bulk, if not all, of her comments were around immune and gut health stuff, which is exactly why Justin Baldoni referred Blake Lively to Jennifer Benson to get immune and gut health issues, probiotics, due to her being sick often. And so, with that said, I'm not going to heavily go into the Benson part because it's not part of the 30 points. So, the first document that we're going to be looking at is Blake Lively's CRD. Now, all the weight comments that she puts in the CRD complaint is the same one that she puts in all of her complaints. So, we're not going to look at all the different versions because all the different versions say the same thing. So let's go to what it says. Blake Lively claims Mr. Baldoni also routinely degraded Miss Lively by finding back channel ways of criticizing her body and weight. A few weeks before filming began and less than 4 months after Miss Lively had given birth to her 4th child, Miss Lively was humiliated to learn that Mr. Baldoni secretly called her fitness trainer without her knowledge or permission and implied that he wanted her to lose weight in 2 weeks. Mr. Baldoni told the trainer that he had asked because he was concerned about having to pick Miss Lively up in a scene for the movie, but there was no such scene. And she claims in later texts sent to his team, Mr. Baldoni referred to Miss Lively's trainer as a spy and sought to plant stories to portray his concerns as being motivated by his lower back pain. So let's actually look at that text message that Blake Lively is referring to. And this is what it says. She's referring to the August 14, 2024 text thread. Justin said, just woke up, texting Jennifer. With all the texts I'm getting worried about me, I imagine this truce didn't last. Jen says, the truce is still on, but this is what we knew would start to happen. More and more people from production, from the crew, people with knowledge are speaking to media in your defense. And while their intentions are good and they want to support you and defend you, it's adding more narrative and giving this life. There was someone who called TMZ to support you and say how much you are liked and how ridiculous Blake's claims are, but in turn shared that you had asked the trainer how much she weighed because you wanted to train to lift her, and also that she was making a big deal about an on-set kiss that lingered. We balanced it and provided context that you were worried about your back, etc., and the article, minus the clickbait headline, is very much in your favor. So that's a new news cycle today. It's not Leslie, it's not Blake's team, because it actually makes her out to be worse. Justin says, who would have known that? Please make sure that they know at TMZ it was my trainer too. We shared a trainer per her suggestion. Jen says, a lot of people, this has been over a year, and yes, it was your on-set trainer, not her trainer. Justin says, but he was a spy. Justin said, if it becomes a thing, we can say my hospital infection was due to me getting stem cells in my herniated disc in my back because I was in so much discomfort. And you can point to my IG post from stem cell results that I'm going back to get it done for my herniated discs in my back. Jen says, 100, but TMZ already included your history of back issues and the concern of training so you wouldn't hurt your back. The positioning is all there and good. The texts you're getting are likely because friends are wanting to come to your defense and support, which is good. You have a really wonderful support group around you. And Justin Baldoni put like praying emojis, I think, praying hands emojis. Now, Blake Lively wanted to claim that they wanted to portray his concerns as being motivated by his lower back pain, as if it was an afterthought, as if it was a manufactured reasoning. But we will see in a later text message between Blake and Lewis that she always knew it was about his back as far as the day it happened. So it was not a last minute, last addition, last minute explanation. It was always the explanation for why he asked. The next document we're looking at is the lawsuit against the New York Times by the Wayfair parties. They state, however, just weeks prior, Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, had aggressively berated Baldoni during a meeting in their penthouse in New York, accusing him of fat-shaming Lively. Baldoni, in an effort to avoid further confrontation with Lively and Reynolds and rebuild rapport with his co-star, continued to bend to her will. Reynolds and Lively's inappropriate and humiliating berating of Baldoni, delivered perhaps intentionally as other celebrity friends were coming in and out of their penthouse, was prompted by Baldoni's reasonable inquiry into crucial information needed to ensure safety and avoid injury in a scene. Baldoni, while training for a physically demanding scene in which his character Ryle would lift Lily, asked his trainer, who was introduced to him by Lively and oversaw his training for the film, how much Lively weighed. Baldoni, who suffers from back issues and has multiple bulging discs, made an inquiry to ensure he could safely perform the lift without injury. Unfortunately, the trainer relayed this information to Lively, who then informed Reynolds. The confrontation that followed was so aggressive that Baldoni felt compelled to offer repeated apologies, despite his question being entirely reasonable and made in good faith. Following this incident, Lively refused to perform the lift scene, even though it had already been rehearsed with a stunt double. In fact, Lively threatened to quit production altogether, despite her contractual obligations. Lively gave Baldoni an ultimatum to either cast someone else or work with her in the way she works. It was her way or the highway. Recasting would be detrimental to production, sever Wayfair's relationship with Sony, and cost millions. To highlight the effects of masterful gaslighting, Baldoni and Wayfair also truly believed that in an effort to save herself from the backlash of being recast, Lively could leak that she felt fat-shamed by Baldoni, which he thought would ruin his career. Notably, it appears he was not wrong, and despite his efforts to do everything her way, she still tried, continues to try, and arguably did, with the help of the Times, ruin his career, reputation, and well-being. So when we go to the timetable that was written by Jamie Heath, it mentions who those celebrity friends were, right? In the actual complaint, they left off the names of the celebrity friends that were there at the berating. But in the timetable with Jamie Heath, this is what it says. Justin had a conversation with Blake and Ryan regarding her weight. Justin went over to Ryan and Blake's penthouse, and Ryan unloaded on Justin how horrible it was that Justin would ask about a woman's weight, claimed that JB was fat-shaming Blake. Justin was completely embarrassed and apologized and even shared some tears. Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman were also present in the apartment at the time. And now we're going into the lawsuit that they filed against the Lively parties. It starts off with, still during the pre-production phase, Lively and Reynolds raised entirely false allegations of fat-shaming against Baldoni, an accusation that, as evidence will show, was categorically false. Baldoni had been introduced to Dawn, who became Baldoni's personal trainer, by Lively. Dawn directed Baldoni's preparation for the film role, including his nutrition and exercise, making special accommodations for Baldoni's back injury. Baldoni even paid to receive Dawn's meal delivery service. So they shared text messages between Dawn Saladino and Justin Baldoni that says, okay, speak later today. I can get you a program this week. And Justin says, sure, just got to New York City for the day. And then he said, hey, bud, tried ya. And he says, call you in a few. Justin says, cool, standing by. Then Dawn sends him the program and then says, here you go, 4 things. The jumps are to be low intensity, and this is to improve performance. Go 50% intensity for the first few weeks. Let's sub the dead stop rows for chest-supported rows. Stay out of lumbar extension. Your low back should not arch. Week 1 should be 70 to 80% intensity. Do not push. And add the cardio like we discussed. Let's jump on a call after you review. And Justin said, amazing. Can't wait to check it out. Thank you. Privately, Baldoni reached out to Dawn as his personal trainer to ask what Lively weighed so that he could train his back muscles in preparation for a lift scene. This was important to avoid injury, not only to Baldoni, who suffered from lifelong back injuries, multiple bulging disc and chronic pain, but also to Lively if the lift could not be completed successfully and safely. Notwithstanding Lively's recent attempts to deny the existence of any such scene, it was only nixed at her insistence after having been planned and rehearsed. The next morning, Baldoni was summoned to the penthouse by Lively and greeted by Reynolds, who swore at Baldoni and accused him of fat shaming his wife. How dare you effing ask about my wife's weight? What's wrong with you? The confrontation from Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and completely unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to ask of his trainer. Reynolds demanded Baldoni remove the scene entirely. Lively refused to perform the lift scene in the end, even after it was rehearsed with a stunt double. In her own complaint, Lively flat out lies about the absence of the scene by claiming the scene wasn't in the film. The only reason the scene wasn't in the film is because Lively and Reynolds ensured it was taken out of the film. Accommodating Lively, Baldoni rewrote the scene with Lively, despite the fact that for creative reasons, this scene was important to him as a storyteller and director. In fact, Lively had earlier expressed insecurity about her postpartum figure, and Baldoni made every attempt to genuinely reassure her. In this exchange, he stated as her director that anything you feel insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body is the last thing you need. When he later tried to do just that, Lively responded with allegations of sexual harassment, followed by a lawsuit. The next thing they did was provide receipts of the fact that Justin was not the one fat shaming Blake Lively, that it was Blake Lively that had issues with her weight. Blake says kicking, but it's still a ton of work with not a ton of time. What's the chance we can do body scenes at the end of the schedule? Justin says, I'm sure you are. Honestly, there's 1 billion moving parts to schedule right now. I just turned in the rewrite, and so they are hard at work. So much of it comes down to locations and the other cast availability, etc. So to be really honest, I have no clue. I want you to know you will look amazing. Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. As soon as I have a rough schedule that's even remotely accurate, I'll share and I'll make sure the team keeps this in mind as well. He also shares on February 18. Blake Lively sends this message. Thank you for your voice memo. It is deeply appreciated. You are everything you promised to be as a collaborator. Thank you. I know my job here, and this piece is in big part of my job here. We both understand the assignment as actors in the roles, but also as producers and also as marketers. We understand artistically, yes, but we get what we need to do in aspects for this movie commercially. As woke as we both are and work to be, this movie requires a certain aesthetic. It's a part of the job that we both excitedly signed up for. I don't shy away from it because it's not problematic. It's the assignment. Like when someone is about to start an athletic event, it's their job to be in top shape. My husband and I both look at certain roles as athletic events, and this is one of them. It's not always a part of the job, but on this one, it is, and that's great. As much as I'd love to not think about it, that would be irresponsible and also impossible because it's unrealistic to not acknowledge what I need to do. This is my job here, and I meet my responsibilities with extreme work ethic. I look for solutions to achieve my high goals instead of lowering my goals. We all win when we're each firing at our highest capabilities, and you and I both are, and will continue to. I just need as much time as possible because I just had my fourth baby. I understand that you'll never personally know all the nuances of the challenges unless you live this physical moment in time I'm in with this physical road ahead. So having your understanding and support to help me pull this off is critical and very, very appreciated, not just in my experience now, but also from healing from experiences past. So thank you. We're gonna kill it and be so fit they have to Lola us to look less banging. Lively then delivered an ultimatum. If Baldoni could not get on board with her work methods, he had 2 weeks to recast her. Implicit in this ultimatum was a threat to destroy Baldoni's reputation and career. As Lively well knew, Baldoni had worked hard throughout his career to earn and deserve a reputation based on his passionate advocacy for women's rights, a reputation she would later exploit and weaponize against him. If Lively were to back out of the film, especially based on accusations of fat shaming, Baldoni's reputation and life's work would be left in tatters. He had no choice but to bow to Lively and Reynolds' demands. Concerns about Lively's undue influence over the film began to grow, even before filming started. The next portion we're going to look at is the unredacted response by Blake Lively for the 56.1 statements. Then we are going to look at some of what they refer to as their backup proof for their statements. So Wayfarer starts off by saying, on or around April 23, 2023, outside the workplace and outside the presence of any Wayfarer studios or It Ends With Us movie employee. Baldoni privately asked a personal trainer he had consulted with, who was working separately with Lively, what Lively would weigh when filming began. Blake Lively's response was undisputed that Baldoni asked Lively's longtime personal trainer how much Lively would weigh when filming began, but otherwise disputed as incomplete and misleading. The cited testimony does not establish where Baldoni was located when he asked Lively's longtime personal trainer about her weight, nor does it identify who was present at the time. The testimony also does not support the assertion that this occurred outside the presence of any Wayfair Studios or It Ends With Us movie employee. To the contrary, Baldoni testified that he shared screenshots of this conversation with Mitz Toskovic, who is employed by Wayfair as the VP of operations. So one of the things that drives me up the wall about Blake Lively and her lawyers are they're technically true, contextually false, right? The time is important. They're talking about text messages that he shared with Mitz in December of 2024. It says in the time starting when the lawsuits were filed in December 2024 that you began using Signal with this group of people that you described. In every single message that you sent or received, was there at least one attorney present on the message thread? Shapiro said objection form, and Justin says, I'm sorry, it was a long question. He's not talking about April 2023. He's talking about December 2024. So they ask him, like, who did you send messages to through Signal? And when they said anyone else, he says Mitz from Wayfarer. I scroll down to the part where they ask him what he sent Mitz via Signal. This was, again, December 2024, over a year and a half after the incident. And he says it very clearly. This whole time period was crazy. So give me a second. I believe I was sending Mitz screenshots of a lot of old text messages. They said which old text messages? Things that I believe would help me in telling the truth about what actually happened. And they said text messages with Blake? No. Text messages with Stephanie Jones? I don't believe I shared any of those with Mitz. No. Text messages with Jen Abel? No. Text messages with Melissa Nathan? I didn't have any messages with Melissa Nathan. Text messages with whom then? And then he says this, my memory, text messages with my health coach, text messages with Don Saladino. So the text messages he provided that was back from April 2023 or earlier than April 2023 were from Don Saladino. It does not speak against what Wayfarer said, which is Don Saladino did not have anyone around him that was Wayfarer related or anything of that sort, or It Ends With Us movie related. The portion that Blake Lively thought would help her case out is starting on line 24. What about your text messages with your health coach did you believe at that time would help you explain the truth of what happened? If my memory is correct, I was being accused of many things, but one of them was like putting Miss Lively on a phone call with a dietitian, which was a lie and an extreme distortion of the truth. Who is Dan, which is really Don, Saladino? He's a personal trainer. Is he Miss Lively's personal trainer? I would assume so. And what about your text messages with him did you believe at the time would help you demonstrate the truth of what had happened? The communication between him and myself that showed that he was also working with me. How many screenshots do you recall sending to Mitz? I wish I could tell you. I don't know. More than 2? Yeah. More than 5? Probably. More than 10? That was a hard time. I will say yes. So yes, he sent text messages to Mitz, but he didn't send it in April. Their whole point in that statement was nobody was there in that conversation except Don Saladino and Justin Baldoni, and it was not in the workplace. That was their main point. Blake Lively cites Heath's deposition on October 8 and said page 37, lines 7 to 8. That doesn't make sense. All it says is, now let me read to you what is he said 2 sentences before. He said, so this must be a typo. So I need to find what she actually meant, which maybe she meant 137. So I've been looking. I can't find what in the world Blake Lively was citing. So I'm just going to go with the things that actually talk about it in the deposition of Jamie Heath. So the first time we hear about it, it says, Hudson says, yes, so you were aware of the incidents that you told Miss Toskovic about prior to June 17th, 2024, correct? Shapiro said objection. Heath says, was I aware? Yes, I was aware that Justin met with a trainer. I was aware he asked about the weight. I was aware of some of these things. Yes. And then this one was the one with Shaw. And she asks, just tell me whatever your answer is. Jamie says, so I'm going to be mindful of it all and just do my best. Shaw says, sure, fair. Jamie said we had a hard time before there was any alleged discomfort that I was aware of or Justin, outside of she was unhappy that he asked about the trainer about the weight, which fine, she had a feeling about it, whatever she interpreted by that. But was nothing in our radar of any sort of issue other than she had some feelings about him asking someone about the weight. Fine. So I'm going back to the Justin Baldoni portion of the deposition. Even though these were not cited, these were the times where he talked about the weight. He was asked, what do you remember sharing with her about your experiences on set? And her being Stephanie Jones. And Justin said, I specifically remember sharing the situation with our trainer and asking him about what he thought Miss Lively might weigh when we shot the scene where I had to pick her up because of my back, and how they confronted me the next day, and how this trainer evidently then went and told her that I was asking about her weight or something. And then how that became this big thing. And they sat me down, and I just remember her kind of not being able to believe that was even a thing. The person not being able to even believe that was a thing he's talking about, again, Stephanie Jones. The next thing we're looking at now is Don Saladino's declaration. Don Saladino's declaration in support of Blake Lively's opposition to defendant's motion for summary judgment. I, Don Saladino, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1746, hereby declare as follows. 1. I am over 18 years of age, of sound mind, and otherwise competent to make this declaration. This declaration is based on my personal knowledge. I am a globally recognized fitness coach, health entrepreneur, and business owner. I think globally is a stretch, but okay, Dawn. I have known Blake Lively for over 15 years and have worked as her fitness trainer throughout that time. Yes, you met her through Ryan Reynolds when they were friends. I agreed to provide training for Miss Lively in connection with her role in the film It Ends With Us. On or around January 22, 2023, with my agreement, Miss Lively shared my contact information with her co-star, Justin Baldoni. That same day, Mr. Baldoni reached out to me. I communicated with Mr. Baldoni both over text and by phone on a handful of occasions, primarily in February 2023. He provided information on his nutrition and workout regimen. His existing workout program included regular back extensions. I recommended Mr. Baldoni a workout program and provided information to him about my standard nutrition plan. I also recommended a specific individual who lived near Mr. Baldoni at the time and who could act as his trainer. I did not receive any payment from Mr. Baldoni and never met him in person. I did not consider myself to be Mr. Baldoni's trainer, and Mr. Baldoni did not give any indication that he understood me to be his trainer either. The funny thing is, there is a text message between Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds. It is pixelated like crazy, but you can still read it. And it was from February 28, 2023. In it, Justin Baldoni says that he is excited to work out with Dawn. Now, mind you, it's redacted, but we know that the only person he's having a conversation with at that time was Dawn. I regularly advise clients to avoid arching their lower back while working out, as doing so creates a risk of injury and generally reflects bad form. I gave Mr. Baldoni the same advice, which was not specific to Mr. Baldoni or based on any suggestion he had a back injury. Indeed, consistent with my understanding of Mr. Baldoni's health, I recommended exercises to him that I would not recommend to someone with a back injury. At some point during his training for the film, Mr. Baldoni called me on the phone. I recall that Mr. Baldoni asked me how much Miss Lively would weigh by the start of filming. He said that he was asked about her weight in connection with a scripted lift scene, suggesting that he needed to know Miss Lively's weight to determine whether he could perform the lift. Suggesting is an interesting choice of words. I would say that explaining is sufficient. He was explaining that he needed to know to determine whether he could perform the lift. Mr. Baldoni's phone call made me very uncomfortable. I have never experienced someone reaching out to me about a client's weight. I felt that Mr. Baldoni's explanation for his question was dishonest, given that based on my understanding of Mr. Baldoni's workout regimen, he would easily be able to perform a lift in range that would include Miss Lively. You made a big deal out of nothing, and part of the reason we're here is because of this ridiculousness? Okay. I refused to answer Mr. Baldoni's question about Miss Lively's weight and told Miss Lively about Mr. Baldoni's inappropriate question. Why? Why did you need to say to her that? Obviously, he went to you because he didn't want her to feel a particular way. I feel like this is just you having job security, frankly, because your only clients ever seem to be Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, and you cannot afford to lose these people. They're your gateway to any client that you've ever had. Miss Lively seemed embarrassed and hurt that Mr. Baldoni had asked about her weight without her permission. Given my relationship with Miss Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, yeah, they're your cash cow, Dawn. Your cash cow. They've been your cash cow. They've been your only source of being a cash cow. You may consider them friends, but at the end of the day, the reason you love them is because they've helped your business out tremendously over the years. Given my relationship with Miss Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, my family and I suffered great personal and professional consequences after litigation between Miss Lively and Mr. Baldoni began. Those have included harm to my online business and death and threats directed at my family. Guess what? You're not the only ones. It's not right. It's not okay. It shouldn't happen. But you are not the only one that got those. Steve Sarwitz literally had somebody come on his property and set something on fire and send text messages saying that they were going to kidnap his daughter. This is an issue that came because Blake Lively chose to sue, not because of Mr. Baldoni. He didn't start the fire. Well, we know who the pyro is. I had never before experienced anything close to the negative commentary and threats that I have experienced this year. I wonder why, Dawn. Is it because we saw you be snidey about Justin Baldoni in your stories, and it gave us a hint of the kind of vitriol that Blake and Ryan were feeding you behind the scenes? Is it because we saw you change your Instagram post 3 different times, and one of those times was specifically so Blake Lively could add those words into her lawsuit, and then you up and deleted them? You up and deleted them when people called it out and said, that sounds like a Ryan Reynolds line. So yeah, people think you're a lapdog for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Do you blame us for that? Well, I guess you do. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. So that's Don Saladino's declaration. The next declaration we're going to read is the declaration of Blake Lively. Plaintiff Blake Lively's declaration in support of opposition to defendant's motion for summary judgment. We're not going to read this whole thing because it's not only about the weight issue versus Don Saladino's declaration was all about the weight issue. So we're just going to jump down to the weight portion of this. I'm not going to read this portion about Benson. You can read it for yourself because Benson, again, was a last-minute ad for Blake Lively. Nowhere in her 30-point document does Blake Lively ever mention Benson and having any other weight-related issue with Justin Baldoni. It was only after the lawsuit that she decided that it was a thing. And as a reminder, she claims that she wrote things contemporaneously for the 30-point document. And that's why I call BS on that, because there's no way those were written contemporaneously. If they were written contemporaneously, they would have been written in the order that they happened, and they would have had dates. They were written for the maximum impact of manipulating people's feelings because people thought it was true. So this is the portion of the declaration of Blake Lively that I'm going to read. Shortly thereafter, my personal trainer and longtime friend Don Saladino confirmed my suspicion that Baldoni was focused on my weight. In late April 2023, Saladino, with whom I had connected Baldoni at Baldoni's request earlier in the year. That's not what Justin Baldoni said. It was her request. She put in that request. Why would Justin care about working with Don Saladino? I'm sorry, he's not that important. Informed me that Baldoni asked him how much I would weigh in 2 weeks' time, i.e. around the time we were scheduled to begin filming. Yeah, he was asking what he thought. He wasn't saying you must lose this weight. Saladino was very upset when relaying the interaction to me and shared his impression that Baldoni's inquiry was inappropriate. I was disturbed and unsettled that Baldoni was soliciting information about my weight, which Saladino did not entertain, and especially that Baldoni called my trainer behind my back after I had recently given birth and was still breastfeeding. Okay, so you're telling me that Saladino made this a thing. You didn't need to get upset. You didn't need to know. Nobody would have been hurt, including Justin Baldoni, because he would have gotten what he needed to make sure his back didn't get hurt doing the lift scene. This is a drama that your circle of people decided to make. On or around April 25, 2023, I informed Baldoni that I was aware he spoke to Saladino about my weight. Baldoni had come to my office to work on script revisions, and before we started, I raised his conversation with Saladino about my weight and conveyed that it was upsetting to me and that it felt invasive and inappropriate. My husband, Ryan Reynolds, was also working in our office at the time on his own film. He briefly walked over and joined our discussion, but returned back to his own work shortly thereafter. Oh, I love how you protect your husband from not wanting to admit that he was yelling at Justin Baldoni. Later on, Hugh Jackman stopped by briefly to pick up Reynolds for lunch. He shook Baldoni's hand at the door. They exchanged nicety, and Jackman left with Reynolds. No one but Baldoni, myself, and Reynolds was anywhere in our office during the discussion about Baldoni's inappropriate inquiries into my weight. How interesting that you decided to also erase Taylor Swift from this. Here's how I know you're lying. Why did you need to omit Taylor Swift? Why do you need to insist that Taylor Swift was not there? So I'm not a Swiftie, so I don't know this woman's schedule, but it shows that on April 23rd, she had a show in Houston, Texas. And then she had a show on April 28th in Atlanta, Georgia. That means she was off from April 24th through April 28th. And so if that is the case, it is very possible that she was at Blake Lively's home. If they gave us a date where she was doing a show, then maybe, then it's like, it's not accurate. How can she be there if she's doing a show? She's on her Eras tour. But it shows here that she was not doing shows. She was on a break from the 24th through the 27th. Justin Baldoni never said in the lawsuit that it was Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman. The only reason that was known to us was because the timetable came out of Jamie Heath. And in the timetable, it showed that Taylor Swift was there, as well as Hugh Jackman. Now, they did describe it as Hugh Jackman and Taylor Swift going in and out. So they never said that these folks ever overheard it or anything of that sort. But the fact that she made a point to say Taylor Swift was not there, I think that's very, very intentional. And if anything, is an olive branch to her former best friend. Please still be my friend. I'm going to protect you. I promise I won't drag your name into this anymore, even though I did it throughout the whole promotion time. So in this particular section, Wayfarer says, Baldoni, who suffers from chronic back issues, asked in anticipation of a scene in which he was expected to lift her. And then they quote a text message that Lively sent to Lewis. And so Blake's response was disputed. The cited testimony does not state that Baldoni suffers from chronic back issues, and defendants identified no evidence supporting that assertion. But you know what I notice is missing, Blake? You no longer fight the fact that there was a lift scene. You no longer fight that there's a lift scene. You didn't dispute the lift scene. You disputed everything else but the lift scene. And maybe it's because of the next paragraph that says documentary evidence shows that Baldoni contemplated including such a scene in the film as late as December 28, 2023. And you responded undisputed that the cited document includes a reference to a scene in which Ryle carries Lily. Lively respectfully refers the court to the full document for its complete contents. And guess what, Blake? Every time you refer the court to the full document, they're going to find out that the full document just reasserts what Wayfarer has said. It is clear that there was a lift scene that you requested or demanded to be removed. But let's read this text message from Blake Lively to Lewis. She says, bagel emoji for the win. Tompkins Square delivers and they're everything as well as French toast bagel. And then she does a bunch of emojis and says, thank you so much for the sweet message. That photo was from a year ago. Wish is what I looked like. See, even in this text message, she's still fat shaming herself. She's still saying, oh, I wish I looked like that, from a year ago. And then she says, I actually had my director / co-star call my trainer today to ask what I'll weigh in 2 weeks when we shoot, because he's worried about his back and bone density and wants to be sure he's okay to lift me up for our sex scenes. Proof again that you knew from day one that the issue was his back. I've committed to only eating bagels from now on also. He's an actual donkey. I'm ranting about strangers. Lewis responds back, I'm sorry, what? Literally, what the F? Who the F is your director? Who the F is your co-star? How is this okay? How are these two still allowed to be in the same room as you and not seriously called to the table? They need to thank effing God that they have you and not anyone else. More gorgeousness packed into one human, and it would take 6 others to fill one set of your shoes. Please, dear God, tell me who these people are. But if out respect you feel you shouldn't, you so know I will know very soon and will enjoy planning what can be subtly said in the future where they would have no idea. Pray tell, Lewis, pray tell. You so know I will know very soon and will enjoy planning what can be subtly said in the future where they would have no idea. Little devil emoji. Pray tell. What kind of planning did y'all do? The trainer, acting on his own, decided to share the comment with Lively. She responded, disputed. The cited source does not indicate whether the trainer was acting on his own when he decided to share the comment with Lively. And the evidence that Baldoni initiated the inquiry about Lively's weight supports an inference that the trainer shared the question as a result of Baldoni's inquiry and or at his behest. Wayfarer's point is, Don Saladino did not need to tell you this. You didn't need to get all in a huff. He didn't need to get all in a huff. Why did y'all make a big deal about this? It's certainly not we should be going to court over it. On or about April 25, 2023, Baldoni met with Lively at her apartment. Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, and 2 other famous friends were there. Reynolds chastised Baldoni for commenting on a woman's weight. And then Blake responds, undisputed that Baldoni and Lively met on or about April 25, 2023, during which Lively confronted Baldoni about asking her trainer about her weight. Disputed that two other famous friends were there during this discussion. Lively subsequently described the meeting to a friend as follows. I had a 3-hour meeting with him today. He had a bit of that meltdown today. When I told him, he's audibly sobbed. This man is terrified of women. And Blake Lively said, undisputed, that the quoted language appears in the cited source, but respectfully refers the court to the cited source for its complete contents and disputes any summary or interpretation inconsistent therewith. Well, let us read it because it's a juicy one. So Blake says to Lewis, and I know you feeling rage at a stranger shouldn't feel good, but it did. I'm sure it does, Blake. You love turning people against other people that they have no relationship with. And you twist and twist and twist and poison and poison and poison. It was strangely healing. I'm sure it was. You are someone I will never, ever want to be around. You are a scary person. He's a bag of hot gas, but he still made me feel bad and very upset. Even though I know he's a clown, it still hurts. So thank you for circling your wagons around me. I'll send you his Instagram. He is so cringe. He got the rights to this massive book. He's cast himself to star and direct. I chose to bet on him. And I also own a huge piece of the movie. In what way, Blake? In what way do you own a big piece of this movie? In the sense of like, it's not monetary. It's not financial. You don't own a piece of this movie. So what did you mean exactly? You own a piece of this movie. So I'm having to bet on myself, but yikes, that gave me a crisis of confidence. I had a 3-hour meeting with him today. He got it loud and clear, but still, being a woman in this industry, 3-hour meeting. 3-hour meeting. He said he was summoned. He said he was summoned to the penthouse. Her version is, oh, we were going to do script rewrites. We were going to do script revisions. And she says, for your cringe pleasure. And sends a link to Instagram. And this Lewis says, oh my God, I cannot watch him. He is a liar and a fake. And he is so full of, okay, I am done. You will be the reason this film gets made and works, not him. It's a movie, not a soundbite. How funny. The irony. Because Blake Lively lived off of those sound bites, did she not? It's just those sound bites bit her in the butt. It's a movie, not a sound bite. And he will quickly realize he will need you tremendously to take him through this. Just wait. He will have his meltdown because he's going to realize he isn't all that. And he will have to rely on you. And when that happens, please, dear God, gloat, gloat, gloat to me. And then they share a bunch of emojis. And as you all know, I don't speak emojis, so whatever. And Blake said, that's so well said. It's a movie, not a soundbite. He had a bit of that meltdown today when I told him, I need nothing from you on this film as an actor or director. I'm good. I've got me. I only need one thing from you, not to make me feel like I don't even need you to make me feel confident. I've got that. I only need the bare minimum from you. Just don't make me feel like that's your only job. I've got the rest. I mean, is that a script, Blake? Because that's a horribly written script. You're telling me that's what you said to Justin Baldoni? It's a badly written script. And you know what? He didn't say that you were the one screaming at him. He said it was Ryan Reynolds. I'm not saying you didn't say anything, but this is like a badly written script of someone who's standing up for herself. He audibly sobbed. It was the performance of a lifetime. Original movie. Lewis, I wish I had been in the room. Yes, yes, yes. He had no idea what's getting ready to hit him. He has no idea what is getting ready to hit him. What's getting ready to hit him? Lewis, you seem to be very much in the know. And I bet the wife is dealing with a totally different person than he professes to be on IG. Methinks you have a bit of a narcissist on your hands, but I think you've got it covered. Again, please, please gloat when it happens. And then the devil emoji again. This is before filming even starts. Lewis, I think you have a bit of a narcissist on your hands. Blake says, do you know how happy that would have made me if you were in the room? This man is terrified of women. His wife, my God, I keep imagining that I'm going to have to ask her to blink twice if she needs to be extracted. I will gloat. Thank you for reminding me that we have permission to do so. I'll share any good ones with you. And yes, you called it. Narcissist beyond. I'm not a unicorn, as so often been said. Dear God. It's not his fault if people have called him a unicorn. He's just bringing up the fact that he's not a unicorn, even though people have said that. Why are you offended that he's bringing up what other people have said? We go to this portion that also said Baldoni told Sachs and Giannetti that he had asked about Lively's weight, claiming he had back problems. again. So it was not something that they manufactured after the fact. All right, Blake? We have proof. You knew from day one that he said it was about back problems. And it's weird to me that you didn't tell Ange Giannetti, right? Because you're claiming this is SH. So why wasn't it one of the many things you allegedly told Ange Giannetti to be SH? But let's read the depositions. Notice how she didn't want us to read anything before line 14 on page 284. And I'm going to show you why she didn't want us to read it. She didn't want us to read lines 6 through 13, where Alex was asked, what do you know about the entry on the list having to do with Mr. Baldoni contacting Miss Lively's trainer? Alex says, I knew about that incident really right after it happened because Justin asked Jamie and I to come to his apartment, and he walked us through exactly what happened. He was really shaken by it, upset, embarrassed, felt trapped. And this is the portion that Blake Lively wanted us to read. She wanted us to read only this part. What exactly did Mr. Baldoni tell you about the incident with Miss Lively's trainer? Well, he said that he had asked the trainer what her weight was because he had a back injury and he was going to have to be lifting her in one of the intimate scenes. And I guess the trainer, I don't even know if the trainer responded, but the trainer took that question and went to Ryan and Blake and told them about it. And what had happened that day was that Ryan and Blake confronted Justin about it. It sounded like they were very upset, asked him why, how he could possibly do that. Again, I don't remember all the details, but it sounded like it went on for a bit. And then Justin was very upset. So he called Jamie and I to come hear about it. And then she wanted us to stop right there. She didn't want us to read the next question, which said, did Mr. Baldoni, if you know, ever apologize to Miss Lively? And Alex responds, I believe he did, but I don't exactly recall. Now, this was Ange Giannetti. And Blake Lively wants us to read lines 15 to 24. Did Miss Lively raise to you during this phone call any issue related to Mr. Baldoni calling her trainer and asking her trainer about her weight? Ange says, I remember hearing about that from Justin. And they asked Ange, so Justin came to you first before you, Miss Lively did? Friedman said, objection. And Ange says, I believe so. Then Blake wanted us to leap down to page 244. And read this portion. Ange was asked, did she tell you that she felt uncomfortable about Justin speaking with her and I think his trainer? Hudson said, objection. Ange says, I can't recall if she told me specifically that herself or someone told me that she did. Friedman said, was that someone Justin? Ange says, I think it was everyone. I think it was Justin, Jamie, and Alex. Did Justin explain to you why he was asking about what her weight might be? She says, yes. What did he say to you? In one of the scenes, he had to lift her and he had a bad back. And he wanted to know how much she weighed so that he could lift her. And what he did say is, I think, not be embarrassed. Like he wanted to be able to do the scene. And did he explain to you that he was concerned about a back injury that he had suffered? And Andrew said, yeah. He mentioned that, yeah, he was worried about his back. Did you know that he had suffered a back injury previously? I didn't. And so that's where that ended. So as you can see, this is one of the ones that have the most backup. It was one of the first instances that happened. And that's why I have a very hard time believing that Blake Lively doesn't have more evidence if things happen. Because this was so minor and yet probably has the bulk and the length and the depth that none of the other allegations have. Her evidence for everything else is so thin. There's so little evidence for all the other things that she claims. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I will also put in the description a link to this playlist if you are interested in watching the rest. All right, folks, thank you so much. Have a great day.